Super excited to be here today. New York flow, I love it. I can just say it. I'm from Italy, so it's always great to come here to New York. AI-assisted 3D asset production at scale. So early morning New York, lots of words, right? But my goal for today is really to let you know what is possible right now, how companies, brands, retailers, studios are using technology to create 3D assets at scale, how they are then being used to create content. I think the panel discussion was just the best introduction ever to what I'm going to talk about. How to do this at scale, of course, the challenges that we're still facing in doing so, and how they can be overcome with artificial intelligence, especially when we think about post-production as well. And yeah, let's just dive right in. And before getting started, you know, this is kind of what the speakers do, kind of involve the audience. So I want you as the experts, you lead studios, you know photography, you know e-commerce, you surely are able to tell in the next 3 pictures if this is a real photo or not. So if you think this is a real photo, raise your hands instinctively. Okay, I see some hands go up. You are the real experts. Classical 2D photo, yes or no? So if you think the number 1 is actually a real photo taken in the studio, raise your hand. If you think number 2 is it, then you keep your hands down. Okay? Great. And then last but not least, also video creation, right? Is this actually a real video? Yes or no? Those who think it's a real video, raise your hands. It's tough to say. I see some hands kind of going up or not. I think you get where I'm going at. All of this content that I just showed you is the derivation is basically a product of the 3D asset. 3D asset, you have it right here. So I just took a screenshot or a screen video capture of a 3D asset, and I want to show you 2 properties that are key for what I'm explaining, right? So you have the shoe here. It has to be reliable, meaning you can put it in any kind of context, put the lights virtually, like in a studio. That's the first aspect. The second aspect, you look at the geometry. So this is basically the same shoe. It's not a different color. It just lets us look at the geometry from a technological level. It needs to be super accurate, right? It needs to show every little stitch, every little thing. Those are the 2 crucial aspects about 3D assets in my conversation going forward. For e-commerce applications, we have 5 applications. You have the 3D asset by itself. You look at websites or mobile applications like, I don't know, Adidas, or you have Zara, right? They have already 3D content out there. You can play around with it, engage with it, zoom in, and so on, just to get the product better. The second application is you derive the 2D from the 3D in an automated, scalable way. So you have the classic 2D photo. You can derive a contextual 2D photo from it, right? So you put it kind of any kind of environment that you want, in this case, a racetrack, and it looks photorealistic. You can derive the video from it. We just saw it, and I think Juliana mentioned it as well. A great way to engage the consumer as well, from a customer experience perspective, is to then also have the virtual try-on, right? So this is just a capture from a phone applications. Now, you might ask, why am I seeing sneakers? Why are these sneakers? Mostly from Adidas. They allowed me to share some of the content here today. We're working with them for a long time already. I think they're a true innovator, taking this on right away, and actually they're using 3D assets to really produce all types of content for their websites, and everything that you see here has been automated, also from a workflow perspective. Now, nice, right? Why should we care? 3D has been around for 10 years. It was hyped, it was not hyped. It's used a lot for gaming. I read one of the questions, CAD models, right? So the designers, either at your customers or in your company, they create these assets, right? And they already exist. Like, why not use them, for instance? So why should we care? I think over the last 1.5 years, and this is not about AI right now, it's just we have been capable of integrating this, right? I show here a few examples of technology companies, of brands, retailers, and so on. So this is already happening right now. You can, you know, leverage 3D, make it happen in your organization. It's not rocket science. You can just do it. There's also providers out there. You just need an internal tech team who loves to do this, who sees value in this. You need top management buy-in. You can make it happen, right? On the other hand, and I think this is crucial then when we talk about also artificial intelligence, how our products economically viable all of a sudden, and how you can integrate this in your workflow, is the processing power has gone up, right? So I can train models, so I can create content also in terms of 3D, which is basically a distillation of 2 images. You can do this fast. and rather cheaply. Now, the device performance has gone up, and I don't need to tell you that, we heard about data sets, ImageNet is one of them, but the amount of data that is available, and also the open source tools that computer vision, machine learning engineers can leverage to create products, they're just out there and free to use, basically, so everybody can do it. Now, what does this lead to, right? So we have seen companies doing this in the past as well. Farfetch is actually, I think, a great example. They have been integrating this heads-on for hero products, right? So just a few. Now, you can scale this right now to all of your products right away. Footwear is one example, right? But you can do toys, tools, anything you want, basically, with varying levels of difficulty. The second aspect is, as I mentioned before, it has become economically viable. The tools are out there to be used. In this case, you see basically a 3D scanner. You put a product inside, hit the button, the 3D asset comes out of it, as one way to do this. And I think this is important from a customer perspective. They, of course, are able to differentiate between a really, really good model and a really bad model. And in the past, we historically had bad models, so why even put it out there if the customer doesn't want this? Now, you cannot tell the difference anymore. I did the initial exercise a bit just to, of course, make you raise the hand and engage you, but also it shows that it's not easy to tell the difference anymore, right? And let's say I convinced you now that 3D assets, yes, they have a reason to exist. You could potentially think about them, or maybe you already do and you did some tests. The question is, how do I get them, right? So, as I said before, you have existing 3D assets in your design organization. These are the product designers for big corporations, especially in footwear. It's either somewhere in Europe, Italy or Germany, or you have them in Portland. They design this and then they get produced somewhere in the world, right? But they exist. Now, on the other hand, you can also resort to something that's called 3D scanning, and you create the 3D asset from an existing real product, right? They have advantages and disadvantages. I will not go into detail about them, and you can maybe look at them on the video recording after the Flow event. But basically, and this was the question before, and that's why I liked it, the CAD model, basically the model that was created by a human, by a designer, by a 3D artist, to then actually produce an item, or the shoe in this case, they miss some properties, especially they are not relightable, and sometimes it takes a lot of manual work to actually perfect that model in a way that the customer doesn't see the difference. Now, that is not scalable by definition. You can do this for a few hero products, but that's it. So I would say the way to go right now, maybe this changes in the future also with AI, 3D scanning is the way to go. Now, how can you scan, right? So you have your mobile phone, there's 3D scanning apps. Can maybe show you later how this is done. You have a handheld device. Of course, it's not the same size, just for illustrative purposes. I put it in this way. You go around the object with the handheld scanner. It produces the 3D model. Or maybe you want to really scale the production, you have specialized equipment, and they have varying degrees of, let's say, speed, where you can get the models. Also, of course, cost, right? It varies from 1 minute per scan on the phone to maybe 10, 15 minutes per scan on a dedicated equipment, $1,000 per machine to several $100,000. So you can do many things, but there is a way to get started. Maybe just to illustrate how such a scanning process works, I have asked Mark, he's a colleague of mine, to explain this, and he actually sent me a short video to kind of show this off. So let's hear it from Mark.
So we're going to scan Teddy, not just because he's super cute, but also because he's got the right dimensions and level of detail of what we're trying to replicate. So here's how it works. We just scan him on the phone, and that's about it. Oh wow. The level of detail on this is impressive. You can kind of see all these fine elements of it, like each individual strand of its hair. And you can even see through the semi-transparent bow tie that he has on. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty awesome. Thank you, Mark. It was late last night. He just sent me the video and said, hey, use it. Alexandra, thanks for integrating it. So Mark talks about 3D scanning mainly, meaning, it's happening. It was at the Connect 2022 event of last year, and he scanned basically a teddy bear with the phone. Now, there's a specific reason he did that, and now I want to get a bit more practical, especially you who love the details and you know lots about post-production and so on as well. So we saw that teddy bear is notoriously very difficult with all the hairs and fur. It's a nightmare for 3D scanning, basically, and I would argue that the teddy bear that we saw that in 3D was created by hand and not surely just by walking around the item, and also the transparency of the bow ties. Notoriously, it's very, very difficult to do, although they have, of course, great engineers. But to kind of distill this and come to a conclusion, mobile phones and handheld devices, great way to get started, right? Especially in your organization. I love also with some familiar faces in here that use these kind of easy to access, low cost ways of creating assets, maybe putting them out on the website already, do some A/B testing and figure out if this could be something for you, and it helps to kind of create a small team of experts within the company. If we really want to scale this, I would argue specialized equipment is the way to go. Now, let's look at the workflow, right? It's a bit small to read, but so I'll guide you through to it. The 3D scanning process looks very similar to like a typical 2D e-commerce process. You have the styling of the object, the preparation. In terms of shoes, it means you fill it, with paper, you clean it a bit, you make it look nice. You do the scanning, or you do in the same way the 2D photo. So the scanning happens. It's this human operator involved. Doesn't need to be necessarily super highly skilled, but it happens. Then the 3D asset generation, right? This usually happens on workstations with a bunch of NVIDIA GPUs automatically in the case of a dedicated system. If the technology, like let's say a phone app, is not that advanced, you might need a human 3D artist to kind of put the model together and make it look great. Then you have the quality check. This is super important, right? Done, of course, by an expert, especially 2D experts who know lighting, who know photography, and so on. This is a great way to also get them involved in the 3D scanning process. Then you have the post-production, especially on very, let's say, reflective items or some items that pose also challenges from just the way they are and they have many holes and so on. This is difficult to do. And then you create the content from it. So the 2D photo, the 3D virtual try-on, the 2D contextual photo, the video, that is all automated, right? So you don't need to do this by hand. You have a script, you integrate it, and it's done, it can go live, right? And where does AI come in, right? So this is now the introduction to the second part of my presentation. AI really helps also on the post-production side of things. Typically, this is work that is being outsourced right now. So I will show you how AI is helping, especially making this economically more viable and also the results more scalable and ready to use in a quicker way. So 3D quality, as we said, is key, right? So you have another example here of an Adidas shoe, relightability in the same way as we saw before on the geometry side. I will not go into detail here anymore. And AI helps basically in two ways. So you have the repetitive post-production tasks, and I think you know this already from the 2D world or the video world and so on. This is nothing new under the sun. And then you have transparencies and mirror-like reflections. Now, we are a computer vision machine learning company, and transparencies, mirror-like reflections is a horror to start with. And that is where typically, let's say, disruptive machine learning comes in, right? So this is where we talk about the nerves, neural radiance fields, maybe a key term that some of you know. It's the latest and greatest. Everybody talks about this in the research community. Yes, generative AI is cool, but really nerves is also another key term that you should pay attention to. And we can maybe discuss this a bit later. And then you have classical machine learning, maybe good old-fashioned machine learning, as it was mentioned before. You tell the algorithm to learn from a database and say, repeat this, what has been done before. The key here is you have to have, of course, a good data set. Now, let's look at the repetitive post-processing tasks. So the paper stuffing coverage, again, this is a 2D photo from the 3D, right? You look inside, you see paper in there. It's not nice, right? I mean, you could put it online, but you don't want to put it online. So what typically happens by hand, you mask this out. You just make it a bit more black. The key here is you can still see, in the case of shoes, the sock liner, because that's usually where the logo is, and to make it appeal nice. But that is happening by hand, right? This can be potentially automated with artificial intelligence. You tell the algorithm basically learn from what has been done by the human and just repeat it. A/B testing is crucial here. Then you have, and some of you might notice when especially you get the samples from the factory, straight from production, they have sample printed inside. This is something that needs to be masked out as well. This cannot go online and certainly not into any kind of imagery or applications that you create. So again, this needs to be masked out. This is sort of the typical stuff that needs to be done. Transparency is mirror-like reflection. This is more disruptive. You see an example here of a football shoe. Again, 2D from a 3D. This has not been shot in a traditional photo studio. And in first glance, okay, looks nice. I see all the details. If you look at the stats, they might seem a bit off, right? In the next image, you see how they should be like. And this is lots of post-production work that needs to be done by experts. The same way, of course, if you look a bit more detailed way on the sole, this is the before and the after, right? So this needs to be done, and this is where, in the future, AI could come in as well. Mirror-like reflections is another big topic. Mirror-like means you can almost see yourself in the object. And again, here, you see the before and the after, and this is lots of work by 3D artists. The great thing is, you do it once, you have the 3D asset, and you create any type of content you want from it, as you can see here. Now, to sum it up, how does AI help? Of course, automation of post-production is one, and great to hear also from Pixelz that they're way ahead of their game as well in that part here. Quality of the scans goes up as we integrate more and more artificial intelligence into our pipeline as well. Time to market is crucial, especially when we're talking about 3D assets. So in the photo side, it's immediately available. When you take per item 15,000 photos in about 10 minutes that get compressed on NVIDIA GPUs into a 3D asset, you might need to wait for a few hours. So this is kind of what you need to deal with as well. And in the long run, of course, costs go down. Talking about scale, right? So the title was also about 3D asset production at scale. What can I do? Of course, there's a learning curve, and this is actual data that we took from some of our customers. And you can see that increase, especially as your team starts using scanners, for instance. What can be achieved? 800 to 1,250 per month per machine if you operate a machine in about 2 shifts per day of 8 hours and 5 days a week. But there's more details to it, of course. You need to upskill your organization. Speaking about upskilling, everybody says AI will automate the jobs away. It's not quite the case, I think. Teamwork is essential. Those competencies that exist in the tool world, in the video world, in the studio, they're absolutely needed. They're crucial to make this a success. And all those stakeholders that you see here need to come together in order to make this work at scale. The results look like this, right? So desktop, but also on mobile, you can see the imagery here that has already been created from 3D. On the left side, this is, I think, from the World Cup in track and field. You can just select the item, look at it in 3D, open it up in augmented reality, and then try it on and feel it for yourself. And this is basically being done for all the content right now. The results in terms of numbers, I think everybody's always looking at that. So conversion rates are crucial. Up to 2x is what can be achieved. Of course, depends on how you integrate it. On the other hand, add to basket rates and product interactions, they go up and all lead to those higher conversion rates. Now, looking in the future, right, a bit of an outlook, the spatial computing devices will come up. The native content there is not going to be 2D, it will be 3D. So nobody knows if this really takes off. We will see. Apple has launched great products in the past. Will this also be a great product? We don't know how the market accepts it, but one thing is clear. It's 3D. It's not 2D if you want to have a really great experience there, right? And looking at the 3D scanning process, and this is, I think, the natural evolution also of the talk that was here before, the scanning aspect as well as then the model creation, here AI will play a crucial role as well. It is essential on how you create that data set. So let's say you are convinced by what I tell you and you say, okay, from now on, tomorrow we start 3D scanning thousands of objects. That will also help you then in the future to leverage these assets in generative AI applications to design maybe new shoes, to design new applications and so on in the future. Just like ChatGPT has done with OpenAI, or let's say OpenAI has done with ChatGPT. They trained their algorithms on text. Midjourney trained their algorithms on images that were available in the net, but high-quality 3D data does not exist, right? I think Google put out a paper a year ago. They scanned about 7,000 items in 5-6 years, right? So that data set does not exist. And B2B, you need specific applications for your company. You can't just say, oh, let me take all the shoes in the world and create the next Samba sneaker. It doesn't exist, right? So you need your own data set, and 3D scanning helps you to create that in the highest quality possible, which makes it usable in the future. And yeah, this is it. I hope it was insightful and interesting. We're working on this, and if you're interested in knowing a bit more, happy to discuss it later. Thank you.
Let's get to the questions. Okay, Gabrielle, is there a way to create a good 3D scan using multiple images from a regular DSLR camera and dedicated software?
So it's possible, certainly. I mean, our first prototype that actually we kissed it goodbye last week has been outdated. We started with DSLR cameras and built the software from it, so it's absolutely possible. To use that and just a few images to then create a high-quality 3D model is impossible, I would say. This is where AI could come in the future to maybe automate this in a way that is, you know, the same quality that you saw here today. Otherwise, I think really you need to resort to specialized equipment. A few 10, 15, 20 images are not enough. You need to do tens of thousands. And we actually right now use machine vision cameras that just are used typically in production lines. And that's what we use to create the core data to then generate the 3D model.
So the answer is yes, but you don't suggest
it's possible.
it. You don't suggest it, yeah. All right, Anonymous. What is an average size of a final file? How will websites need to change to support these potentially large files and load times?
Yeah, I think that's actually a great question. So you have 250 megabytes of the, let's say, the core file, right? Of course, that cannot go on any kind of website. But that is the master file, right? Which we distilled already from gigabytes of data that we automatically captured and generated into this 3D file. For websites, I think the 3D model is about 5 megabytes, but that can be automatically generated too, of course, with a trade-off between quality and so on, but it's absolutely possible.
Yeah, so kind of the same balancing act with everything, images, video, that's just, it's
absolutely
a different type of asset. Okay, Anonymous, how does the cost of AI 3D creation compare to traditional photography and post-production?
Yeah, I can tell you, I mean, the models that you saw here today sell for $85 per model for the master file. Then, of course, the declination in the several applications cost and depends what really you want to do. So there's an additional cost for that. Comparing on post-production, I would say it's similar. Actually, we work with, there's not many 3D post-production studios out there that have been doing this for 10 years on high-quality models that just don't exist. So they switched as well their organization. Prices being similar, of course, but right now we're still in a phase where this is being adopted, so prices naturally will be higher compared to traditional photography. Also in lots of companies and organizations we talk to who look at 3D as kind of a solution to go forward, to kind of engage the customer in a better way, to create various types of contents almost automatically. They usually have a holistic view on 3D assets, and that's provided by the top management, right? They say, okay, this looks good, we can use this, let's get started on it. If you do a comparison one-to-one photography versus 3D, there's no chance 3D will ever make it to the website because it's just not economically viable.
Interesting, okay. Ali McLeod, do you anticipate brands will provide 3D assets to marketers or multi-vendor retailers since scalability is still challenging from a PDP perspective?
Yeah, so I think great question. The answer is absolutely yes. I mean, the same way relationships have been handled in 2D and perhaps video as well, where the brands just say, okay, the open-minded brands say, okay, here you can have all the content. You're an important partner to us. Put this on, I don't know, Zalando or any kind of other platforms out there. I'm still staying within, let's say, footwear fashion right now. So I think this is possible. The question here is about the quality, right? You as a retailer, you need to ensure that you have comparable quality. If one company does this with phone scans and the other company has specialized equipment doing this at scale, there's a quality difference, and I guess a retailer should have in mind what kind of quality he wants to have out there. And I think there's still major differences. Whereas photo, except for maybe how you style it and how you place it and so on, there's a certain quality standard that is widely accepted by both sides, right?
Awesome, awesome. All right, Edward Melvin. Can models interact with the 3D models to imitate traditional photo shoots?
So I like the question.
Yeah.
Can models interact with the 3D models? so can basically, yeah. Interesting, there's some video out there. I think it can be done, but it's a lot of it is done manually, basically in, let's call it post-production. When you create one type of application, interacting with actual models, it's still not automated, but you can do it.
Can you scan, I mean, in essence?
A human?
Yeah, and in essence, this metaverse type, yeah.
To make this really look photorealistic, still long, I would say, quite some way to go. It's the typical analogy also with AI. It's really great to go about 80% of the way, quick demo. It's like, wow, how is this even possible? Then you look at the application at scale, where really the last 20% matters, and then it's a question of how costly is that last 20%. So I think there's still some way to go. So there's a reason also why we have been focusing on scanning assets of products versus scanning humans, just because it's so difficult. And billions of dollars of research actually go into this. If you look at, say, if you participate in a major computer vision machine learning conference, the Googles, the Facebooks of the world, they do major research with big teams on this. And there's still no product, right? So it's a bit of a way to go, I would say.
But I mean, Mark's putting Adidas on the teddy bear, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. I just wanted to be clear about that. All right. Scott, what is the biggest current bottleneck in the 3D workflow, and how has AI solved some of the previous bottlenecks?
Yeah, so I wouldn't even call it a bottleneck. It exists right now. This can be done at scale right now. The bottlenecks, the major bottlenecks have been resolved. I think the major bottleneck was, in the first place, how do you get in an automated way for all your products to actually have 3D assets that can be used, and it's, again, economically viable. So, and it's not crazy, thousands of dollars of cost per one single item. Now, looking into the future, certainly some aspects of post-production, especially transparencies, mirror-like reflections, depends a bit on the range of products that you have that you want to scan. If you want to, if you're a glass producer, or I don't know, you are Moët and you want to scan many bottles of champagne, maybe it's big effort on the post-production side, and not that feasible right now. Depends on the range of products that you want to digitize.
And lighting those bottles would be fun.
Yeah.
Anonymous, how does the cost of AI 3D creation compare to traditional, that's already been answered. Stacy Tyrell, it's moving around.
Yeah, I think there was a question, maybe I take one, right? So how can you handle metallic objects, jewelry, etc.? Nerves, the answer. So you can handle metallic objects, but it needs in post-production, it's just a fact. But again, there you can get pretty long way with the right equipment. Our nerves, neural radiance fields, the answer. So right now, nerves, what they do basically, just to explain it for everybody, so you have a bunch of images, maybe your traditional 10 images. A neural radiance field basically creates in a machine learning way the 3D model, basically, but you cannot display it. So in order to display it, you fake a collection of 2D images, which gives the illusion of a 360 around it. So basically, from a set of images, neural radiance fields, many images are created, but it's not the 3D asset yet. So I think right now not. In the future, this is, I would say it's possible, yeah.
Let me ask a question about the lighting, because I love lighting.
Lighting, right?
What's that?
Lighting?
Lighting, yeah. So when you create that lighting, and you said it's relightable, and as it zoomed around, I mean, are you sticking to a specific light, like, all right, I'm going to do a softbox light, or I'm going to do a nice punchy light, or is the client able to just change the lighting themselves
it's like an
all the time?
Studio. You can do whatever you want with it. You can put, like some videos, you can put the sun there, or you can put a soft light, a hard light. Really, just, you can, the comparison I showed with the two leather shoes in the beginning was basically, we took the virtual lighting that was one-to-one the actual lighting in the studio. One was a studio photo, the other one was a photo basically taken from a 3D asset. You can't tell the difference. I mean, the consumer can't tell the difference. Then if I look at it really into detail, we zoom in like crazy, then there is still a difference there. But also here expectations have shifted, right? In the 2D world, it was like really accurate. Now they say, yeah, maybe the 95% that was mentioned before, it's good enough, and final customer will never know.
Franz, thank you so much. Everyone, give Franz a round of applause here. Thanks, buddy.